Welcome to Shout Your Cause with Sally Hendrick, a digital magazine where you can get found, get heard, and get inspired with content that challenges us to be globally minded. Our focus is on raising awareness around social justice issues, cultural differences, and to bring you the people dedicating their lives to tackling challenging topics as their way of giving back. Let us be your advocate to make your voices heard around the world. Hey everybody, my name is Sally Hendrick. Welcome back to Shout Your Cause, and I am so excited to have Dara Tucker with me today. Now, Dara, I noticed that you changed your TikTok name just in the last few days. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
So tell me, what is your TikTok name right now?
I have changed my name on all platforms to Dara Star Tucker. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's just a part of that sort of alliterative. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot in names, and I have kind of felt that name for myself for a lot of years, and have kind of hesitated on pushing play just because I'm already kind of out there with a lot of my content already. People know me as one thing, but I just felt like it was time. I felt like it was time. It was like, this feels like what my name is and should be. And it's felt that way for a long time. So I just decided to hit play and just do it. And not worry about, all the stuff I have out there already with just Dara Tucker. It's like, all right, people will adjust. And so will I. It's going to be okay.
Well, and that's what we'll use in the show notes for this podcast episode.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
you will be the first to use Dara Star. And it also helps with the pronunciation too, I think, because a lot of people do say Dara. And then Dara. Sometimes I hear Dora or whatever, but to connect Dara with Star, it's like they sound alike and it rolls off the tongue a little bit easier.
I like that.
Yeah,
well, and I'm in the personal development space. I have a social media business and an advertising agency, which is very different from my background. However, I've always been learning in the last few years that if you want to be something, you just put it out there.
Absolutely.
And act like you're already there, because then you become that thing, no matter what it is.
Exactly. You let people adjust. I think I kept in my mind, because I felt like I needed to make this switch for many years. And I kept thinking, oh, well, when is the right time? And is it too late? That was a big thing. It was like, is it too late to do this? And, will people adjust to it? Will they think that it's silly? And all of these questions. And I'm like, just freaking do it. You don't need permission to do it. And people will adjust. They may, people that I know may think that it's, a little bit whatever, braggadocious or egotistical or just silly or whatever, but they will adjust. They'll make the adjustment. We know Stevie Wonder is Stevie Wonder. That, someone could easily have called him arrogant back in the day. You could easily call John Legend arrogant for naming himself that, but we just accept that. Yeah, he's John Legend, of course, and it sounds great. So
even think about that about Stevie Wonder. I saw him in concert at the Milwaukee Summerfest. My kids were in a band and they played Summerfest, and that was like they were really young when they did that a few years ago. And Stevie Wonder had a concert going on just next door to where we were, so that was pretty cool. But I never even actually thought about the fact that Wonder was like a name that he attached to himself.
That's the thing that you don't, Alicia Keys, that's not her name, right. We don't even really think about it. You just accept it. And I have to stop overcomplicating it myself. And just like you said, just be it. Just be it.
So since people already are used to your prior name, Dara Tucker, now Dara Star Tucker, why would they even know who you are? Tell me your claim to fame.
Well, I'm a singer. I don't know that a lot of folks wouldn't necessarily know who I am if they're not interested in jazz, because that's the genre that I'm sort of planted in. So if you're plugged into the current jazz scene, you might know my name. And I've put out probably, I want to say 5 studio albums at this point.
Okay.
So I've been working since about 2009 was when my first album came out.
Okay.
And I just released a new album this year called Dreams of Waking. And so that one's number 7 right now on the jazz radio chart. So I'm really excited.
Congratulations. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I'm trying to think of the brothers that they teach at Berkeley. They have the jazz club here in town. Oh my goodness. Their names just slipped out of my mind. My daughter just graduated from Berkeley in Boston.
Oh, wow.
And and she was at the summer camp. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to think of his name when we come to it. I literally saw him at the Indian restaurant the other day, and I wanted to go up and talk to him, but he was deep into conversation, so I didn't say anything. But you'll probably know him once I figure it out.
Okay.
So when it comes to, you live in New Jersey, right?
Yes. I'm just outside of New York.
So are you performing all around all the time? What are you doing?
Well, with the pandemic, things have changed up a lot. I just moved to New Jersey last year from Nashville. I lived in Nashville have lived in Nashville for most of my professional career.
That's where I am.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to know this person when I figure it out. I'm about to figure it out.
Okay. You said he owns a club there in Nashville, or owns a few clubs?
Yes. I don't, and he teaches at Berkeley. He goes up to Berkeley. Wooten.
Oh, Wooten. Victor Wooten.
Victor Wooten. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about Rudy's jazz group. Yeah. I just played my CD. I just left Nashville. We went back and did our CD release or album release show. And so that's where we did it. Was it Rudy's, which is named after Victor's brother.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm definitely familiar with the Wooten family. And I'm sorry, what did you just ask? I feel like I'm not answering something you just asked.
What it is that you're doing in your career. Are you playing out all the time? Are you in the studio? What's your thing?
Yeah, well, the timing of us moving up here, because my husband is also my bass player. His name is Greg Bryant. If I talk about Greg, then you'll know who I'm talking about.
Nice.
I just hate to go through entire interviews going, my husband. It's Greg. So he's my bass player and manager. And we just moved here to the New York area last year. So right after the pandemic hit, or just right before the pandemic hit, we moved in January and everything shut down in March. And so, to start up our schedule again it's a real process. We've probably got 4 or 5 dates on the books at this point.
Okay.
But we have not started, in earnest to like super just playing out a lot and touring yet. So we've got a couple of dates up here in Jersey, and then we've got one show on the books for LA coming up in the next few months, and one I think in Massachusetts somewhere, West Watley. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. My daughter's a bass player too, so maybe But she she went towards the music business route, and so now she's working outdoor music festivals as like a stage manager, and she'll be doing the arena tour type stuff with another company as soon as that starts to kick back up. So I think that's so cool that we have this connection here with Nashville too. Do you have a dog? Learn unleashed potential dog training secrets with Duke Ferguson. This free video series will get you pro training tips so you can get your dog's attention, eliminate behavioral problems, and enhance your relationship in just 20 minutes a day. Sign up at sallyhendrick.com/dog training. I am very curious. Have you been here since the NAMM opened up, the National Museum of African American Music?
Yeah, we just were in Nashville last week, but we didn't get the chance to see that museum. And a couple of people have told us you should really get out there and see the museum. So hopefully we can do that later this year when we go again. Okay,
make sure you hit me up. I live 2 blocks away from it.
Oh, wow.
And I have a membership. My whole family has a membership. It is my favorite museum I have ever been to. and I absolutely wept when I walked
Oh,
through the door, just reading everything. It just touched me a lot
oh,
because
that's
I
so
have
cool.
a lot of roots in history in West Tennessee is where I grew up. And I don't know, it just really touched me. And the artist who did some of the street art that's in the more current exhibit is actually my husband's artist at his furniture business. So
Oh, wow.
for graffiti type stuff. So it's really cool.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool. Well, I'll have to be sure to reach out to you. Yeah, I wanted to go by, but it just my husband had a show, Greg had a show, and then I had a show the next night. It was a lot to try to fit it all in.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well,
yeah.
and it's something that where your legs will be tired and you'll want to be there. You'll want to go a couple of days in a row, just
Yeah.
because it's hard to absorb everything.
Yeah.
It has a very deep experience.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
can
this is
imagine.
really cool that we actually met on TikTok though, and obviously your name, like we said before, is Dara Star with 2 R's, Star Tucker. I noticed that. And I noticed your content because you were talking about different historical aspects around the country, especially the most recent one was the Confederate statue history. Now,
Yeah.
I would love for you to tell me what's your passion behind teaching this history.
With the Confederate statues, well, I am originally from Oklahoma. And as you probably know, Oklahoma doesn't really have much of a Confederate history at all. And a lot of that seeps in over time. I've definitely seen Confederate flags in Oklahoma, but Oklahoma was not ever a part of the truly like old deep South. It was still Indian territory by the time the Civil War came along, and so I'm just not, I'm not accustomed to really seeing a lot of that imagery. I've traveled all over. I've lived in a lot of different states and whatever, but I didn't really get to experience being a part of a culture that was plugged in with a lot of that, antebellum kind of imagery and ideology until I moved to Nashville. And I got there and I remember passing by that Nathan Bedford Forrest display, that
on
huge
those
statue.
65.
65.
It's now pink. It's pink.
Yes.
Somebody
When I first moved there, and I was like, oh my God, does stuff like this still exist? I just couldn't believe that even existed. And I knew that a lot of Nashvillians, including Greg, who's my husband, were really embarrassed by it. And I'm just like, well, but how does something like this exist in the 21st century? Like, how did we get here? And so that really was what started to pique my interest, just moving to Nashville and realizing a lot of these street names and, little monuments and displays and things. And like, there's so much of this stuff splattered, throughout the South and in Nashville in particular. I mean, I went to Brentwood, kind of Brentwood, Franklin area. So many of the streets are named after Confederate generals. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Why are we idolizing these people so, 150 years after this war has ended? Why is this still so commonplace? And so that really kind of sparked my investigation into like, what's really going on here, and who's perpetuating this and who is funding it? Because it's not, it's very intentional, clearly.
Right. Well, and to find out that these statues were erected during the Jim Crow era and, when civil rights movement was starting to tick up into the 60s, you've got all of that. And a lot of people don't realize, for some reason, they want to hold on to this ideology that this is how, this is what they should be proud of. But what happened is that it was used as a scare tactic or a control mechanism in those days to basically say, oh, well, no, I'm putting you in your place. This is what we're all about here, et cetera. And just to cause intimidation.
Right. It absolutely is. And I think a lot of people are just unaware of it, and they just think of it as, oh, this is historical. And you'll hear that a lot. I see that a lot in my comments on TikTok. Oh, we just need to leave them there and don't tear them down because this is history. It's historical. It's like this thing went up in this Nathan Bedford Forrest bust that was just removed from the Capitol in Nashville.
I was gonna
That
say
went
that.
up in 1978. This is not like,
Yeah.
in real history. This is like a glorification, or just a celebration of some mythology.
Mhm.
I mean, not to say that these people didn't fight, and die, and I get it. A monument, or a memorial, I should say. A memorial is different than a monument or a statue that celebrates a cause. That's different from celebrating the dead. So if it's in a cemetery or on a battlefield or something, those
Or
types
a
of memorials,
museum.
right, a museum, those types of memorials did go up in the wake of the Civil War, as you would imagine that they would, after there's been, there legitimately, there was death and there was sacrifice and there was suffering. And you can understand them wanting to honor their dead, despite the fact that the cause they were fighting for was not okay to be fighting for, but they still died. So, you can understand that. And in the wake of the Civil War, those types of memorials did go up. But what we're dealing with now with these Confederate monuments and statues and busts and things, this is something completely different. This is like a chest thumping kind of, thumbing your nose in the face of someone telling you that you have to move forward with the times. And I think that these people need to be called out on it. They really do. In 2021, I mean,
Yeah.
Do you want to stand out from the crowd with your content? Come discover how to market yourself as an expert, as a change maker, as a positive influence on other people's lives. With the Exponential Marketing Club, you will learn the ins and outs of content marketing that makes a difference in the world. Visit sallyhendrick.com/club.
I mean, I remember this in high school, and I was born in 1970. And so I grew up with a huge Nathan Bedford Forrest statue in the middle of our city park in a very small town in West Tennessee. And I remember thinking at the time, this is wrong. There's something wrong with this, because I just read about this in history class or whatever, or I just visited Pilot's Knob in, almost to Middle Tennessee, but it's still West Tennessee. And there's a celebratory type of thing there as well, around Confederacy. And then as an adult, like one of the things that I have been working on ever since I was about 18 years old, when I moved away from home, was I wanted to really learn more and more and learn how to be anti-racist and how to push back against what I grew up with, because it was always a struggle for me mentally as a child to deal with that. It was very blatant in my family, in my town, not from everyone, but, from a lot of people, a very large majority. And so that was like something that I went on discovery with once I graduated high school. Now, one of the things that I did as well was I went on a trip to Hungary in 2010 with one of my friends, and we went to something called Revolutionary Park. And that park in Hungary, in Budapest, is where all of the statues from the USSR days, the Russian, Lenin and Stalin and, Ivan the Terrible, and all of the statues and things that were put up all over the country had been gathered up and put into this park. Wow. And you could go and walk around and see these statues. And there was just this oppressive feeling about those statues, and to read about the meaning of all of that, and to know that they had the wherewithal and the smarts, honestly, to pull all of that away from every city park and every, thing that was hanging over the people. There was a happy worker statue where the happy worker has his arm up in the air and he's working for the government type of thing, and it was an oppressive place to be. It was this peasantry, that was throughout the USSR, but everybody was over, they were underneath these big statues of oppression, and they did not leave them out everywhere. They moved them to a place where you could still go and see it and read about the history, but they made fun of it. They have this, they have this sense of humor in Hungary that is unbelievably refreshing in how they handle things like this, because they've been taken over by everybody. So anyway, it was just something that I'm like, gosh, if we just had something like that in different parts of the country, then people could really learn and understand and never forget, because we don't want to forget anything that's happened in our history, because that's how we learn and not repeat the atrocities.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's important, you hear that a lot. Oh, leave them there because we don't want to history, but it's like, it's got to be contextualized,
Yeah,
and putting
right.
them all in a park together and calling it, what it is, helps to contextualize that. And it's fine. It's like, all right, if you want to come look at some statues, Germany has Holocaust museums, and they leave Auschwitz open to be toured by the public. And yes, of course, the history is still going to be there, but it has to have the proper context, or
It does.
or it's just celebrating something that should not be celebrated. And I think, folks have gotten away with that for a long time in this country. And when you try to address it, a lot of the times, the people who are invested in maintaining that protection that they have had, they will try to minimize your concern about it. It is a gaslighting move, because it's like, well, it was important enough for you to put it up. But then when I bring it up that it shouldn't be there, then all of a sudden, oh, it's just a statue. What's the big deal? Why are you getting so upset about a statue? Why are you getting so upset about the one of the bigger videos that hit for me on TikTok was the Aunt Jemima bottle, when I did the whole explanation of why the Aunt Jemima character is offensive and shouldn't be on the bottle, and it was right that they were removing it. And a lot of the criticism was, oh, it's just a syrup bottle. Oh, it's just pancakes. What's the big deal about pancakes and syrup? It's like, well, if it's not a big deal, why are you fighting so hard to defend it? Why are you fighting so hard to keep it there? So obviously it is a big deal. Those symbols do matter a lot to a lot of people, because it's about representation, and it's about identity for Black people, and it's about our bodies and our images being co-opted and used in ways that that are mocking, frankly, and that represent what our role was in society. And these images, like you said, of the statues and all of this stuff, Nathan Bedford Forrest and Robert E. Lee and stuff, that speaks volumes, to walk by a statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest or a bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest. It says a lot without saying a lot. That's the reason that they're put there, is because, you can make a pretty big statement without having to say anything. By what we choose to honor in our public spaces, we are making a statement about what we value and about who we value, and about hierarchy and, the structures that we are upholding as a culture. They are making a very big statement. So I don't subscribe to the argument that, oh, this is petty stuff. Oh, we have bigger things to worry about. It's like, no, this stuff is reflective of our values.
Would you rather work or would you rather play? If we're going to go through all of this business building stuff, it better be for something that we love doing, right? Take a moment to do this quick life purpose challenge to discover what makes you truly happy. It's free. Visit sallyhendrick.com/life purpose.
What happens when we've got an uprising that's happening now to obliterate some of these things from our view, from our aura? And it's so important, because the last time this happened in such magnitude was in the 1960s.
Right.
And we have a lot of people that still are alive that were very much into what was happening in the 1960s. I've got friends, from all angles that have stories and things that they remember and things that they can tell about that time frame. And until those people are gone, it's very difficult for the next generation to do better. And if you perpetuate it, and you're talking 60 years later, creating a whole new set of oppressive memorials, if you will.
Right.
and you're talking about continuing
Right.
that into the future to more
Right.
generations, and we never get past it. That's why it's 400 and some odd years
Right.
since slavery started in the 1600s until today. And we wouldn't still be talking about this if we weren't allowing things like that to happen like it did in the 60s and 40s, 50s, and 60s. So
Yeah.
I really love the fact that social media is here today. It kind of is a double-edged sword in that a lot of bad information can be spread around, a lot of evil can be done, if you will. But those of us who have a voice, who want to obliterate the misgivings and the falsehoods and want to bring forth the truth and new perspectives, I think that it is an incredible tool. So I want to thank you very much for stepping up and speaking out on TikTok or Instagram or wherever you are.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey for me, because I was not really raised to do what I'm doing. I was not raised to be much of a I'll say a troublemaker. I was raised to be very obedient and very much colored between the lines, and to just find, my place in society and make positive contributions and not stir up the waters too much. But I've had to sort of call myself out on that. And just, I've been inspired watching, the kind of younger, you and I are both kind of Gen X generation. And they called us Gen X because we supposedly didn't have a cause. We didn't have anything that we were fighting for. And it's true. When we were like in college or whatever, we weren't the ones out there protesting and carrying signs, and it just wasn't the thing to do. We were just, as the John Mayer song says, we were waiting on the world to change. It wasn't that we didn't know there were things that were wrong, but we were just, there was an apathy that set in with us after our parents' generation, which were the boomers. They went out there and protested and they carried signs. And then there just was, I think, kind of a national exhaustion that set in, that really kind of settled over us in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Right.
In our youth, where we would have been out there just like, fighting for something. It wasn't cool to do. It just wasn't the thing to do. And I appreciate the millennial and the Gen Z generations for kind of bringing back activism, social activism. And I've had to really kind of course correct myself and realize that just sort of sitting back and allowing other people to speak out, and I'm having private conversations with the people that I care about, but like the idea of being outspoken, it just, especially in the age of social media, I didn't really know where my voice fit. I wasn't really finding my place, and my whole stance was just to step back and allow other people to have those conversations, because I didn't want to contribute to the cacophony. I didn't want to contribute to the noise, because that's a lot of what it felt like. It's just a lot of people just crabbing and moaning and just airing grievances or whatever online. And so I thought, well, how, after the events of last year, really the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and there have been so many before them and since them. But it was like, all right, there's a shift that's happening, that it's just, if you are really going to turn a blind eye to this and not lend your voice to the symphony of voices that are out there who really are risking something, if you're not willing to risk something, what kind of a human being are you? I don't care if I wasn't raised to carry protest signs or whatever. It's like, what can I do? What positive contribution can I make? Well, I can organize my thoughts. I can do research. I can bring context and understanding to some of the issues, particularly in regard to racial justice. These issues that I have thought about deeply for years, and that between myself and family, friends, we've discussed for years. But in terms of how I can lend my voice to the national conversation that's happening, the way that I have settled into contributing to that conversation is by providing some historical context. And that's just where I have settled in. I think that's kind of, if I have a niche or a specialty, then that is my specialty. I get reach outs from people from time to time going, well, this happened and that happened, and are you going to speak to this, and are you going to talk about this, and are you going to address this? And it's like, I'm not really the current events day to day kind of person.
Right.
There are some current issues that I do address, but it's like really for me, addressing historical context and helping people to understand why some of these issues are relevant to us now and how history has impacted a lot of the crap that we're dealing with now, and how there is a through line, there is a narrative, there's a story, there's a reason that we are where we are. This stuff didn't just pop up, Philando Castile and wasn't just Alton Sterling, whatever, Eric Garland, they weren't just victims out of the blue. There's a history and there's a context for this stuff. There's a reason that the Black community takes up the space that it does in the world today. And, the why. Let's talk about the why and let's contextualize this historically.
Yeah. Well, and that's not always a day-to-day current update kind of thing
right.
to do. That's right. A deep dive, analytical thing to do. And it takes a lot of brain power and a lot of marinating and thinking on things to be able to pull that context together. And I really appreciate that about you. I write in the same way. With the articles and things that I've put out. I'd worked for a newspaper at one point and they were like, can you do like one of these, like 2 a week or something? And I'm just like, no, I can't do that. It sucks the life out of me. It got to the point where I was like, look, how about I do a really deep dive commentary once a month? But I can't do this every week. And it was not, it wasn't my job or anything. I've run my business.
Turn what you know into what you do. Join the platform with the most ways to monetize what you know, whether it's online courses, coaching, memberships, podcasts, newsletters, communities, or more. Kajabi gives you all the tools you need to build, market, and sell it with just a few clicks. Sign up at sallyhendrick.com/Kajabi. That's Kajabi.
I want to know now at this point, what is your hope for the future? Because we're still in the middle of a lot of chaos. We've got a lot of things still going on with the pandemic, and I'm afraid that we have a lot more coming with the pandemic. I think that it kind of has been working side by side, and that everybody's on this level playing field with this disease that's going around. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why this uprising is happening. All the chaos is happening at once. What is it your hope that happens with us when we get past this phase, if we will, or into this new era?
Well, my ultimate hope, and I know this sounds like some pie in the sky, drivel or whatever, but my hope is that truth will prevail. And it sounds sort of grandiose, but the fundamental hope behind that is that we would be, and I don't even want to necessarily say restored, because I don't feel like we've ever really had a society that was grounded in truth in this country. I feel like, when people get nostalgic, I'll just say when white people get nostalgic about, the olden days, the good old days, the 50s and the 60s. I'm a huge fan of like classic films and television and movies, and I love that stuff. But I don't like the way that goes hand in hand with this sort of almost false nostalgia, where we're looking back to something that actually never existed, or that only existed for a small strata of the population. And so in my estimation, I don't know that we've ever really had full, genuine reckoning, understanding, or appreciation for truth in this country. And I want us to stop being afraid of truth. So we can have these conversations, we can have these discussions, and it doesn't have to mean that you are threatened because you're a white person. A lot of times white people are implicated in a lot of the wrongdoing that's happened when we have conversations about racial injustice. But I really want people to stop being afraid of having truthful conversations and to be willing to see the past for what it was, understanding that it was not an ideal time for everyone. Just because a certain segment of the population was living high on the hog, or, experiencing prosperity or unprecedented happiness, it doesn't mean that that's how society that's what we need to go back to, because there was a huge swath of the population that was being subjugated and undermined and marginalized. And so if we have to have marginalization and subjugation of a huge swath of the population in order for the other swath of the population to feel that they have happiness and prosperity and safety and wealth and all of this stuff, it's like, that's not a trade-off that should be okay with anyone.
No.
So we've got to grapple with our history and be truthful about what our history is. So that's what I want. I want us as a culture and as a society to become lovers of the truth. I have a background in I don't want to say religion, but like my family was very much embedded in faith and in spirituality and all of that. That's, it's actually a line from the Bible. I don't know what the exact scripture reference is, but that men be lovers of the truth. And that to me is where our so-called salvation as a culture lies, in becoming lovers of the truth. And it's like, if we can move forward in truth, we can find a lot of common ground after that. We may not all ever agree. And I think peace in itself is maybe a little bit of pie in the sky talk, but just being lovers of the truth, let's just start there. That's my hope for the future.
It's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Not right. Just truth and perspective, because truth and perspective is the enemy here in a way, and also our friend in a way. We've got to be able to allow for all the entirety, all truths and perspective.
Yeah, and it's tough, and it's complicated sometimes, because it's like, the truth can be difficult to digest, and it's not simple sometimes. The truth is plain, but sometimes it's not simple. But I think we've got to develop an appetite for the sometimes complex nature of the truth. And I'm not a fan of this term that's really popular now. This is my truth. I'm telling my truth. It's like, no, there is the truth. I don't like the idea of that word kind of being toyed with, because we can't even count on media. We can't even count on the sources of where we get our information from to give us any kind of a grounding, like a ground zero. This is truth. We have got to get more connected with what that really is. And we got a lot of confused people out here who don't even know, even if they wanted to find bedrock and truth, they don't know how to find it anymore, because our media is so fractured and so fragmented, and anyone with a website can purport to be communicating truth. And we've got to develop a respect and an understanding for what truth really is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that perspective of this truth, if you will. And the last thing I want to mention, do you write music as well?
Yes, I do. Most of my album, this current album is mostly covers. I wrote one song called Do We Sleep? But my albums previous to that, most of them contain my own music that I write. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm curious if any of this will bleed into your music, into your writing at some point, because you've taken up this cause. It's something that, and maybe you don't think of as taking up the flag for this cause, but I feel like you are, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much.
And I definitely want to celebrate it. So that's why I'm here, to shout your cause. If there's anything else you want to leave us with, maybe a link to your website or an album name, and I'll make sure people know about it.
Well, the current album is called Dreams of Waking, and it's available really at all digital outlets. You can actually find the physical copy at Target and Walmart, but it's
good.
It's on, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all of that. It's called Dreams of Waking. It's Dara Tucker. So I made the mistake of not putting it out under my current name, which is Dara Star Tucker. So you'll find it under Dara Tucker, Dreams of Waking. And then of course I'm online, daratucker.net or darastartucker.com. You can find it there too. But yeah, I'm all over the place. And that song Do We Sleep is actually, it's really cool that the album itself is like a social justice album, and it has a lot of protest music and a lot of just like come together and love each other music. And then that song, that original song that I wrote for the album called Do We Sleep, it actually is referencing a lot of this kind of stuff we've been talking about today.
Good. I'm going to go listen to the lyrics, and I'm going to break that down. And when you get back to Nashville, let me know, and I will give you a personal tour of the museum here, the National Museum of African American Music, because you will love some of these exhibits they have, the interactivity and how the history of music and the connections between artists, their influencers, and who they influenced, and how you can explore all that and literally get downloads of those music playlists onto your wristband.
Oh, wow.
They give you a micro website that is yours, all yours, of everything that you pick up throughout the museum for you to go back and use later, but it only lasts for like 2 months. So you have to make sure you go download things before they go away. It's a fun place. So make sure you look me up.
I will. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And that's the end of our interview today. Thanks for being here, everybody, listening to Shout Your Cause, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Okay. I'll just stop the recording now. I will edit that.
Thank you for listening today. My name is Sally Hendrick. Be sure to visit our website for show notes and more information on how you can inspire others. If you would like to contribute content to our magazine, please apply on our website at shoutyourcause.com.